The DC Extended Universe has had its ups and mostly downs while trying to keep up with Marvel. And producing their latest film with troubled star Ezra Miller at the helm does not make it any easier. However, with Michael Keaton returning as Batman to include a cameo from the original Batmobile, DC is hoping that their fortune will turn quickly. It's The Flash. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm leaving the theater. This is Ronald, and I am leaving the theater after seeing The Flash. The Flash. Directed by Andy Muschietti. Written by Christina, Hodson. Starring Ezra Miller, Sasha, Calle, Michael Shannon, Ron Livingston, Maribel Verdu, Kiersey, Clemmons, and Michael Keaton. For a complete cast listing, as always, you can go to the link in my show notes. I am not here alone. I am here with
Pamela Perez.
Pamela Perez makes her triumphant return to leaving the theater. We're so happy to have you. The Flash. This is another DC superhero movie. Before we even get into that, just know that we're not going to really get into Ezra Miller as a person or any of the allegations and or charges that are pending against him. We're not going to talk about any of that. We're just going to talk about the movie. We're just going to talk about The Flash. This is a DC superhero movie. This is the story about how he enters the Speed Force and then begins to time travel. And in trying to time travel, he goes back to fix something and messes up other things. And that is generally the plot of the movie. We'll try to stay out of spoiler territory. Mostly the spoilers that we will not talk about will be about who's in the movie. There are some very surprising cameos that are going to be a lot of fun for folks. With all of that being said, what did you think?
As a person who has no vested interest in the entire universe, I started out this movie not liking it. I thought that they were being really flippant about how they were approaching the storyline, when I felt like they could have gone in a more serious Batman direction. Because if you're going to try to compete against Marvel, why not do something completely different? Which I think sometimes they do try to do. They do try to take a darker tone. And I appreciate that about them. I think that there's something really interesting about the darkness of superheroes and their intertwinedness with humans. So anyway, when the beginning of the movie was being really flippant and all kinds of bananas things were happening, some of which were even kind of weirdly uncomfortable, I was just kind of buckling down to just sit and be okay, well, here goes 2 hours of my life that I'm never going to get back. However, once the Flash really starts digging into his storyline and the other characters become just side characters who aren't in it anymore, and it becomes about his past and how he got to where he is and how he is trying to change time, I became way more invested. It did take on a slightly darker tone at certain times, but at the same time still kept this jovial thing going on. There were a lot of parts where the whole theater was laughing. So I ultimately really liked it.
Yeah, this movie's fantastic. I think it is a very clever way to do an origin story, because when we watch this, we have to remember that the first time we're introduced to the Flash in the DC Cinematic Universe, he's already a part of the Justice League. He shows up, Batman recruits him, and he's in the Justice League. That's it. And then we see him fighting other people. We don't know any of the origins of his power. We just know he's fighting with the Justice League. In this one, because they make it a time travel movie, they made it interesting enough so that not only do we see the Flash when and a version of the Flash when he gets his powers, we also get to see the Flash kind of grappling with learning his powers and then mentor himself, which is just a very clever way to execute a traditional origin story. Normally there's a bunch of stuff we already know, but they really, they take it on the audience to know what's going on and him to explain things that are happening, how he uses his power, the fact that he's phasing through walls. We did not see him do that in any other movies, but he does it in this movie and then later explains it to himself, thereby also explaining it to the audience, which I was like, that's incredibly brilliant for them to do it that way. Just as a first time, just like watching it that way, did you think of this as an origin story at all?
Absolutely, for sure. You could definitely see that was happening, and it was really organic and interesting the way that they pulled it off. And Ezra Miller is a really dynamic actor.
Yes.
So he did an amazing job considering he was playing two really distinct personalities throughout the movie. I felt like he balanced it well.
Yeah, for much of the movie, Ezra Miller is acting against themselves, and actually, I think Ezra Miller uses they, them pronouns. So I apologize. I'll just say that on the record. I apologize for us using the wrong pronouns. So Ezra Miller is acting against themselves most of the movie. And despite what's going on in actual reality with Ezra Miller, their acting is very good. For them to be both cracking jokes and also have to be incredibly serious, they are there for the task. They execute it well, and because they have to act against themselves and two very, like you said, distinct personalities, which is again seasoned superhero and brand new superhero working together, since they have to do that, it's just incredibly, like, it's a feat of acting to even pull that off, you know? So I think that was good. I think, what did you think of the storyline itself? Like, it's a time travel movie, so how did you feel about that?
I love time travel movies, and I think they executed it really well as far as, like, they didn't allow themselves to get away with loopholes, which is what really frustrates me about other time travel movies. So there was a lot of, like, making sure they were staying on top of things. And the plotline in general... Do you want me to pause? The plotline in general I found just really enjoyable and intricate, and it kept you tied into whatever was going on.
Yeah, I think in terms of time travel movies, I feel like when you set your rules at the beginning, that is your contract with the audience saying this is what we're going to do. And they follow their rules. They basically, at one point, a bowl of spaghetti is used as an explainer, and I think that was effectively done. And I also think that there's a lot of surprising things about this movie. From the trailer, everyone knows that Ben Affleck is in this movie. Everyone knows that as Batman, and we also know that Michael Keaton is in this movie as Batman. I was getting excited because they showed the original Batmobile from the Batman movies when we were kids, and they used the original scoring from the Batman movies when we were kids. Did you have any feelings about that? Did it put you in a time machine?
It did. It really did. And there were moments, there was, like, you know, the big moment where, like, Michael Keaton, you realize it's him, and he's introducing himself again to us and them as being Batman in this particular timeline that they've jumped into. And the audience lost their minds because
they really did.
It's so nostalgic and wonderful to go back to that.
And not only that, I think I already talked about this is a very clever way to do a origin movie. It's also a very clever way to do a reboot or to introduce an old character coming back and play a character they did before, to do old man Bruce Wayne. That's just very clever way to do this for it to be in this time travel movie. In a lot of ways, this movie felt like it was doing what Spider-Man No Way Home was doing, or is it No Way Home? Is it No Way Home? If that's the most, yeah, that's the one with the multiverse. If this is DC's answer to Marvel's multiverse movie, they did a very, very good job. Yeah, that being said, what do you rate it?
I would give this, just as like a purely movie not thinking about the whole universe of it all, probably like a 3.25 for me.
Nice. That is low. I would give it... Yeah, this is going to be one of the few times in which I surpass a guest score on here. I give it a solid 4 stars. I think at one point I had it at 4.25. However, you're right. Like the beginning, there's parts that happen in the beginning that are a little bit wonky, but once they settle in and the movie starts going, I'm just like, oh, this is good. Hit after hit after hit. At one point in my mind, I had it up as far as 4.5, but like just thinking through it all, I'm thinking, nope, this is a solid 4-star movie. I liked it a little bit better than I liked Spider-Man Across the Multiverse. But again, another solid entry in the summer movie slate. You're raising your hand. It's just me and you. You don't have to do that. But what can I help you with?
I do have to. First of all, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was amazing.
Spider-Man Across the Multiverse. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. That's the newest one.
Oh, okay. I can see that one being not as good as the first one.
Oh, it's incredible.
Well, okay. Now I'm just confused. Anyway, let me go back to my other thought, which was that I can see how, like, I think this is something that, like, as a person who's interested in the whole universe, I could totally see it coming off as a 4-star or a 4.25 star. And it is purely because I wasn't as invested. But there was a moment where I sat there and I thought to myself, like, this is a passionate and exuberant crowd, and they love this universe. And for that reason, I can totally see why this was, like, a great movie for them.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think I will say that if you are looking for DC to have a hit, they have a hit. If you are a Marvel fan and you also want to like peek in on the DC universe, you're going to enjoy this. For casual movie watchers, you're also going to enjoy this. I think for people who don't like superhero movies, this isn't going to do nothing to move the needle for you. Like I think, and I still think that a 3.25 is a fair rating for all of those people to say like, there's people that would rewatch it. It's not like an average movie and all that. Yeah. No, 100% worth seeing in a movie theater. So yeah, like I think that's a fair score. I think like I said, I'm giving it a 4, thinking about like how I felt about, and one, I know what I know about you, and you saw The Little Mermaid with me, but you gave it a 3.75. Yeah. So I'm like thinking about you and what you like in a movie and what like motivates you. That 100% makes sense. So don't ever feel like you have to justify your score, not on leaving the theater.
Justifying it. I'm just saying like I can understand how being invested in a whole storyline, it made me realize that like, oh, I've completely fallen out of this like world that exists without me.
Yeah.
So it's not me justifying it, it's just me recognizing that like I just exist in a different multiverse, if you will.
Well played. As soon as we get off mic, I'm going to explain like 2 of those cameos to you, and I think your head's going to explode, and you'll understand.
I'm excited.
All right. And so, with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of Oh It's Big Ron Studios. Alexandra Ketch of Bias Studios mixes the show. Thank you, Alex. Show art from Heather Wilder. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. For more information about The Flash or Pam Perez, check out our show notes. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Oh It's Big Ron. That's at OHITSBIGRON. You can find out more about this show and other Oh It's Big Ron Studios shows by following us on Instagram at Oh It's Big Ron Studios and on Twitter at Oh It's Big Ron Stu. That's STEW. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. Thanks for listening. And thanks for being here.
Anytime. Literally, like Thursday. Can I come Thursday?
We'll see.
Okay.